we don't want to be using threats. We don't want to be using even words. Yet we have to get the 5-year-old out of the house and to the bus stop because the bus is going to be there at a certain
Right?
time, right?
Yeah.
So walk us through, how do we start to turn this ship around?
And it's such a great question, and the timing of it's so perfect because it's usually at this point in the conversation where I can see if I'm doing a workshop or if I'm one-on-one with a parent, that like the fear starts to creep. Okay, but what now? What do we do? And so here's the thing. It really is about hitting the balance of being both firm and kind. So when we talk about not using threats, not vilifying the child and attempting to control them, that doesn't then mean that we're advocating for what I call flowery meadows parenting, where you just like release them to the flowery meadows and watch them blossom, because we know that actually isn't great for child development either. So we need this magical balance of being both firm and kind at the same time. Now, underlying all of that must be the foundation of a very safe, emotionally speaking, a safe parent-child relationship. When the child is in right relationship with the parent, a relationship that allows for the child to lean into the parent's guidance and care and to be emotionally at rest, the child will instinctively desire to do the parent's bidding. Does that mean that the child will do the parent's bidding every single time? Oh, no. Because their minds are not yet fully formed. They're working on figuring out how we get through this thing called life. And so there is going to be ups and downs and hiccups and bumps and all of that kind of stuff. You hold the line. I had a parent yesterday say, well, this all sounds well and good. This, of course, is on social media, which always is, so much more interesting. This all sounds well and good, but so if your kid's pulling on the dog's tail, you just let them keep pulling on the dog's tail. And I was like, is that what you took from this? Like, are you bigger than your 2-year-old? Might you step in between your 2-year-old and the dog and very firmly, but with compassion, say, this will stop, gentle hands. And then if the child is unable to sort of do your bidding in that moment, you take it upon yourself. And this is the mind shift that allows people to sort of really figure out what the respectful parenting approach is about. You take that on yourself. You understand my child in this moment is unable to do my bidding. My child in this moment is unable to understand the rule. My child in this moment is unable to follow through on the rule. And so now I will help my child with that.
I will help my child. And that's the key, right? Like, I don't have to make my child, but like as a parent, you're coaching, you're helping these kids who are going to make mistakes, and they're going to be annoying and frustrating and they're going to like drive you bananas, and you're helping to coach them into, people who ultimately adults, right? But I will help my child. I love that he said that.
Yeah. And it's on you as the parent. That's the difference. We don't put it on them. We don't make them wrong. We hold ourselves accountable to their journey and their development.
I love that. I love it. That reminds me, who was it? Hal Runkel said to me in our interview, he said, you are not responsible for your children. You are responsible to your children.
Oh, what a beautiful play on words. Yes, that's exactly at the heart of it, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
And so I love this idea, because you're saying, you have to, you're shifting the expectations. You're saying, expect your child to be immature. That's the definition of a child, right? Like, they are immature. Expect your child to make mistakes. Expect your child. Sometimes I think a lot of it has to do with our expectations. Like, if we say something, it should just happen. That's that kind of conditioning that we were given, that idea that kids should just automatically obey things, but not even, adults don't learn something the very first time we're told something. You don't learn, dear listener, you don't learn something the very first time you're told it. How many episodes of this podcast have you listened to? Right? Like, none of us do. And so we can't expect our kids to, right? You're asking the parent to like shift expectations and shift responsibility.
And
I
to
like
really understand that children, we cannot take the expectations that we ultimately have of our children when they become adults. So we want them to be kind. We want them to be grateful. We want them to be generous. We want them to be, polite. We want all of these things, but we can't take those, ultimate outcomes when they become adults and by downward extension, apply them to the child now, because children aren't tiny adults, they're children. And if I'm going to have a grateful heart as a grown-up, when I'm 34, that's going to look one way, but when I'm 3, it's going to look very different. When I'm 3, it's going to look like I'm practicing figuring that out. And I'm learning that by seeing my parent model it over and over and over again, that I see my parent living a life full of gratitude, and I'm just osmotically absorbing that. And one day you'll see the fruits of your labors, but first you must develop the root system so that they go deep and they're well secured.
And remember, dear listener, you only have to do this 30% of the time.
You're welcome.
Okay, mic drop, podcast over. Catch new episodes of the Mindful Mama podcast and other free resources, including the Mindful Mom Guide at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can listen to every back catalog episode, including interviews with Dr. Dan Siegel, Iyanla Vanzant, Sharon Salzberg, and get meditations, join our private Facebook group, and more. Go to mindfulmamamentor.com now. I'll see you there.